Hey, what up, boxing fans? This is the Rope A Dope Radio Podcast. I am your host, Chris Carlson. We're live, per usual, 6 on the West, actually more like 6:30, 6:40, 9 on the East, 2 UK time, really about 2:41 UK time right now. Had to run an errand that I was not expected to run or was expecting to run, so I had to take care of a couple of things real quick. But anyway, we are live, like I said, per usual. It's a Wednesday night. We have a lot to talk about. Obviously, a lot of the recap and review from last weekend will center around the fight on ESPN that a lot of people were looking forward to. Lomachenko versus Guillermo Rigondeaux. Rigo. That's Guillermo Rigo. Anyway, however you want to say his last name, it didn't turn out to be that great in the ring, did it? It didn't. So obviously the attention was brought to it. I made sure, though, that I didn't necessarily go and brag to too many casual fans about the fight because of style. You know, we did. I never quite let myself think this is going to be a skill fest. You know, this is going to be a great chess match. Now, I figured if anything, it would be a chess match. I think I labeled my blog prediction article Autobahn chess. So high-speed chess, lab coat required. And that's the whole thing, the lab coat required thing. I knew that you would need a lab coat to appreciate this thing. And even with the lab coat and goggles and your beakers and test tubes all shinied up, it still sucked. I mean, there's really no way we can look at it, to be honest with you. Now, if you're just a Lomachenko fanboy, it was a great night. You had this guy who was talking a bunch of smack, quit on his stool, and obviously we got to talk about quitting. Right? We got to talk about, we have more information now on the contusion on Rigo's hand. So we'll dive all the way into that. Obviously, when you have a big fight like this, a lot of the top high-profile fighters, or fights, I should say, especially when we're talking about styles like this, the matchup anyway, they tend not to either be they tend to be one-sided, or they just don't live up to any of the hype. So I guess it's nice that it was on ESPN and we didn't have to pay for it. But then again, it was on ESPN after the Heisman, so we knew it would get a good rating. You know, the hype for it was there. The lead-in was there. They got the rating, but it was disappointing. So maybe if it would have been on pay-per-view, only 112,000 homes would have had it, and it would have been less pain maybe. It's weird to look at that. You want the exposure, but then sometimes boxing, like all sports, have their just boring moments. The Spurs for years didn't necessarily get great ratings when they were dominating, winning the title every other year. I think 03, 05, 07, they kept winning the title, and people dogged them because of their style of play. It was too defensive. It was ugly. And, so it is what it is. I mean, although it wasn't as bad as this fight, but you can look at like Sean Porter against Adrian Broner. I thought there would be some fireworks in there, but Broner wasn't in good enough shape and probably shouldn't have been at that weight class fighting Porter, right? But he didn't really show he wanted to fight or be like, well, I don't know if I can fight like I need to fight to be competitiveness, in this matchup for the whole fight. And yet that peaked well over 3 million. So sometimes you just get these bad things happening. At least it's not a bad thing like someone got blatantly robbed or something. But sometimes, the damage can be just as bad. But, it is what it is. It is what it is. I never let myself get too excited for the actual fight taking place inside the ropes. But anyway, we'll talk about Salido's Well, quick retirement. He had a cup of coffee, decided to come back. He's already coming back, but a great win by Miguel Roman. We'll talk about Tevin Farmer. Did he get robbed? Should he have at least won the fight? We'll talk a little bit about that. Speaking of fights we're going to talk about, obviously we got to talk about this one. The upset of the year, coming off the heels of what looked to be the upset of the year. Obviously, Horn Pacquiao, huge upset. Last week, speaking 2 weeks ago, obviously, Miguel Cotto getting upset by Saddam Ali. Huge upset. Huge upset, right? Major, major upset. But you know what? Not like this. 40-1, 30-1. I even saw some 100-1s. I don't know if they'd actually let you bet on that, but the UK has a. The UK, sometimes their odds are just, well, they're odd. Sometimes you're just like, really? You guys were able to bet on that? Like, a lot of times you can't even bet on 100-1. But Caleb Truex from Minnesota got the job done. He is now the super middleweight IBF champ. You can't take it away from him. It's unbelievable. The second champ from Minnesota all time. We've had some solid dudes. You know, we had a heavyweight that fought all the top guys, but that's the point. He fought all the top guys, so he wasn't going to get a belt. You know, we've had some guys close. Davenport, Iowa, my guy Michael, second to none. Loved him. We had a guy from North Dakota. We've had some fighters in and around the area, but obviously several years ago, Jason Litzow got that big win over Caballero. That was one of the biggest wins that I can recall, Minnesota-wise. But big win over James DeGale. And where does he go from here? And we'll also recap that FS1 card that turned out to be pretty good. I'm telling you, man, those mid-level fights and some of the prospect stuff that they do on FS1, a lot of times it's toe-to-toe Tuesdays. Lately it's been, on a Friday and whatnot. They got one coming up this weekend. And speaking of this weekend, we will obviously discuss a big fight. I call it pole position at middleweight. Billy Joe Saunders versus David Lemieux. Pole position for a couple of different reasons, obviously, right? It does put you in pole position. If Gennady, let's say May 5th, that fight happens, the rematch, Golovkin-Canelo, right? Well, if Golovkin wins, he's always talked about wanting to be the undisputed at middleweight, collect all the belts. It puts you in line there. Even with Canelo losing, he needs a belt to come back to, right? That could be a big opportunity for him. If Lemieux wins, same difference, really. Although I think you could say if Lemieux wins, many people out there kind of have a hunch that they'd go after a belt and not give Golovkin the automatic rematch. Either way, though, like I said, you got to build back after losing anyway. So I do think that there is some importance, the pole position. It really puts you in good position at middleweight for heading into 2018 anyway. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that quadruple header on PBC FS1. We'll also get into the news. Tyson Fury, last couple days it's been known he's the ban is over. It's kind of like time spent, right? You've been suspended all this time. Sounds like he didn't even show up to his hearing, but it's probably just his lawyer needing to be there. And plus, he would have to actually apply for his license to make it official for his comeback. But it sounds like he's good to go. Kell Brook, Jose Ramirez, several fighters getting dates, some of them official. So we'll talk about some fight news as well. And, fight news, current fight news anyway, and rumor mill items, that type of thing. We'll definitely get into. But obviously, if this is your first time listening to the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast, you could check us out every Wednesday live. like you're doing right now, maybe at blogtalkradio.com/rope-a-dope radio in the browser there, or by calling 646-381-4990. I do have a YouTube live stream going right now. It's only going to be a chunk of the show per usual. There is a link to the live show, or when you get to it, it's already archived. There's a link to the full episode to check that out. So make sure you check that out. But yeah, check them out check out the show, which includes a college football and basketball show and NBA later in the year. Or I should say next year, midway through the year, more like. But you can check that out at Apple Podcasts, aka iTunes. You can rate and review the show there. That would be great. It really helps the show for exposure. Player FM, that's another great source for boxing podcasts in general. Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, and of course, thegruelingtruth.net. That's right, thegruelingtruth.net. Give that a visit. Boxing, football, basketball, baseball, all sorts of different type of interviews, podcasts. We are now part of the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network. Very proud of that. They're also on iHeartRadio. They do a great job over there at the Grueling Truth. Once again, go visit there, thegruelingtruth.net. They got a great sponsor, mybookie.ag. Mybookie.ag. So anyway, we got that out of the way. And, of course, the Grueling Truth Network, of podcasts, sports podcasts, that can be found everywhere I just listed and plenty more. So if you're interested, check it out. Like I said, they got a wide variety of topics and great interviews. They just had George Foreman on. So they got boxing history. They got now stuff. They got a variety of stuff. So check them out. Anyway, let's get on to it, shall we? Lomachenko, Rigondeaux. Now, on paper, man, we just didn't know exactly how this was going to play out exactly, right? We knew that it had potential to be a slow fight. We knew that size potentially could be an issue, and it could be a major advantage. Really, the only advantage I think, Rigo came in with was the arm length. The funny thing about that is, and it was 3 inches, right? 2.5, 3 inches reach. And so if you're ever going to hit Lomachenko, it's when he's coming forward. We've seen that, So to me, it was a little bit, I'm not going to say baffling, because it's not like Rigo came forward and got his Salito on. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that. He didn't do that. That would be misrepresenting what happened. However, I still think letting Loma come to you is your best bet, because at least you got the jab for the range. Instead, it's kind of weird. He actually, now remember, we got to keep this within the Rigo world, how he fights. When I say he led, he actually did lead right away. He landed some pretty decent jabs, and it kind of surprised me that he had Lomachenko, a guy who was very comfortable on the move. He put him on the move ever so slightly. I'm not saying that he went Margarito on him. That's not in him. That's just not him, right? But I was a little surprised, and I thought, well, that may have won you a round. I heard plenty of people say they gave Rigo the first round. Yeah, I can see that. I can see some of that. I can see that. I do think the best punch, though, of the round was a left hook to the body by Loma. I really believe that. But either way, let's say you gave him the first round. Live, I didn't. But let's say you did. I could see that a little bit. But then, really, it was over. Slowly but surely, it was over. And I say slowly. I mean, it didn't even last long, so not that slow. But you could kind of tell minute by minute, it was more frustrating for Rigo. Lomachenko was mostly jabbing in the second round. He did manage to get inside a little bit. got some inside work done. Then he brought out, to go along with his jab, some nice short shots, which I think he's getting better at, in his uppercut, which he can shorten up now on the inside. Then you could see 4th and 5th round, Lomachenko started picking up the pace more. And he was out working him. He was out hustling him. He did get a late shot. What was that, the 5th round, where he punched him late? Rigo got a point deducted in the 6th round. Few really good body shots to go along with the jab in that 6th round. And that's it. That's it. It's crazy, but that's it. Lomachenko landed 55-15. He threw 339 and threw 6 rounds. That's a pretty good number. Obviously, you know, that put him at about 110 if he kept the pace up, which is still a pretty good number to land. But that was it. I mean, it didn't take long for Rigo. Even when, like, Lomachenko would pivot, he would stay with the pivot, but he just couldn't get his shot off, you know? So to me, it was a combination of, I think the shots hurt more than we think. I think some of those shots, uppercuts, left hands, and like I said, a couple body shots, I think they landed a lot more solid. You could kind of see the last round with Walters, another guy who decided to retire and quit on the stool. You could see it a little bit more in that fight, where you can't necessarily see the exact point where Rigo gets hurt, and that's a problem. That's the problem. A lot of people are like, dude, I didn't even see you buzzed yet. Like, why would you quit? You know? I just felt like he tried somewhat, realized this isn't working. Then he just started going to the clinch. He started ducking down, not necessarily defensively. And, I mean, the one thing I'll say is 339 is a nice pace in that type of fight for overall punches thrown. That's what Loma did. But he only landed 16%. You know, 16-8 is what the percentage was. So 55-15 is a huge disparity. But, you know, he wasn't allowed to really get off much either because he was getting held. And it was a big bear hug, neck hug. It was a, you know, and I think once he got that point deducted, then he's like, well, shit, I've already had a point deducted. That's the only thing I'm going to be able to do. And I kind of feel like, not that he landed many, but when he did land, it just didn't do anything. And so we don't know how those punches were feeling on the other side of it. Obviously harder than it looks. And that was kind of the big worry about this fight. You know, would Rigo be able to have some remnants of power to keep him off of him? And not just that, but could he take the shots? And it's not like he was dropped and hurt and all that. So to me, it felt like Rigo quit in a variety of ways. Now, I don't know the feeling on the contusion that he had on his hand. I don't know that feeling. None of us do. The exact feeling. You could say I broke my hand, I broke my knuckle, the top of my hand was all messed up. We can, as athletes and normal, just, you know, people, right? Civilians, I guess you could say, that aren't partaking in this art of war, right? We could sit there and say, we could have very similar surgeries. We can say all this stuff. You know, I can relate making weight because I had to make it for wrestling on the same day, 2 hours before I wrestled, actually, not any kind of 29-hour stuff. But when push comes to shove, I'm not going to act like I know how the contusion felt on his hand. But in the same breath, I felt like he could have carried on. I don't think it was just the injury. I think he mentally quit too. You could see it in his demeanor. And for a guy who's so highly skilled, for none of his little tricks to work barely, it had to be an embarrassing. You know, and embarrassment and pride can work two different ways. Sometimes it can just make you not want to stop. And sometimes you can see a guy just lay it out on the rope and be like, dude, I know that you're complaining that they stopped it, but you'll be happy when you see the replay, dude, or long term, you're going to be happy. Some guys are just like that. Now, some dudes just have chins too, and they just don't go down. It happens. But to me, his pride got hurt. He was embarrassed, and his demeanor was he shut it all down. And now you're halfway through the fight. You've already got a point deducted. That's only going to get you more points. You're down on the scorecards completely. He just gave up. And that's what it looked like. He gave up. We could sit there and say, well, back in my day, guys used to fight. Here's the thing. We don't have to go but a week ago. About a week ago. Sorry. Every time I say a week ago, I think of Schmurder. Anyway, about a week ago, Cotto fought almost half of a fight with a clear bicep injury. Another thing about Rigo after the fight, and I respect him. I think he got shitted on after the Nonito Donaire fight horribly. I think the media, they just bait clicked it because they know like how you win a fight is going to get chastised or praised. And obviously he didn't get praised for his win. And the thing about it though, like he was almost like childlike trying to take off his wraps. Did you notice that? He kept pointing to it and everybody's like, yeah, we got it, dude. You're hurt there. It's cool. What we're going to do is we're going to go in the back, take that off, and then get a look at it. And he kept trying to pull it off just to almost show guys, hey, I got an injury. I want to show the swelling, So he got hurt, and like I said, that could be a really sensitive part where he couldn't do anything. I don't know. I have no clue. But what I do know is the way he kept trying to pull it off and point to it and pull it up, dude, we got it, man. Like, to me, it just felt like he could have continued. I really think he could have continued. And he quit. And I think he mentally checked out. And he just couldn't do it anymore. And to me, Walters, it was similar to that, except Walters seemed happier to get the hell out of it. Because remember he went over there and he was all like energetic all of a sudden. Hugged it out, I believe, and all that. Well, I'm not saying don't hug it out with your opponent, but it was kind of a weird ending there. But at least we saw him take really hard punches where I think this was more on the low hard punches. Not to say Rigo didn't take punches, because he did. It just seemed more visible against Walters, but you can't take away this win from Loma too much. What I think you can do, though, is kind of judge it how he does. I mean, he said the guy's the king at 122. He's not. He's just too small. I don't look at it like a great win, which I like that mentality. Another thing I love his pops. I love his pops because his pops did so many genius things to him, for him as a kid to become a fighter. The whole ballerina thing, like the dude, the mental training he does when he's tired is awesome. And it's that's why Lomachenko is special, because, it's not, I mean, you got to give it credit to Vasil, but his dad has something to do with that, obviously. And I love how his dad said, calm down, dude. And they tried to put on the crown. He said, nope, take the crown off. Nope. His dad's old school like that. He knew exactly what just happened, and he wasn't going to have his son walking around acting like a tough guy. I'm not saying Loma, that's what he's trying to do, but he knew that, all right, dude, this isn't spectacular what we did. We knew this is how this was going to go, so let's do it like business-like. And I felt like Loma still got to show his excitement, but he wasn't going to have his son walking around with a crown for this fight, which I thought was kind of cool. I thought that was kind of cool from his pops. And I liked how Loma said, nah, dude, I don't look at this some great victory. And where do you rank this victory? It is tough. It really feels like the Mayweather Marquez, where there's two super skilled guys, and at the end of it, it was a one-sided fight. I mean, of course, Marquez hung in there, even getting knocked down and taking big shots. He hung in there. But it feels like, well, size played too much of it, a factor. And I think it did. But I still kind of feel the same way I do about Mayweather Marquez as I do as this. No matter when they fought, Loma's going to, the style just doesn't match up too well for Rigo. Now, had they have fought at 124, maybe that would have weakened him. And I'm talking about when he was a featherweight. I'm not talking about now. But I believe he was willing to give him that back then. And don't get me wrong, I feel bad for Rigo after what was said in the press and what was said with Bob Arum and a bunch of fans and a bunch of fanboys for Nonito as well. And I love Nonito. I thought he was I still think he was an elite level dude and crazy counter puncher, good style, athletic as hell. But he got beat, plain and simple, that night. But then again, you got to look at Rigo. Certain people he put on his staff and certain mistakes he's made. You got to be responsible for the mistakes he made. And when it comes to social media, let's be honest. We now know he hired somebody, I think in Las Vegas, to do his Twitter. But since he hired him, he does have control. And if the trash talk was getting so out of line, he could have said, listen, dude, let's stop the trash talk. I don't need the trash talk. Just let's release pictures of me in camp. Let's be a little bit more. I want to be more interactive with my fans. I want to do that type of thing. Everybody does their social media a little differently. Some people don't do it, which obviously is a mistake, but you got to do it to some extent. But to be honest with you, he at least was okay with this because his social media platform on Twitter was off the chain funny. But the thing is, there's consequences with that. And if you talk a gang of trash, guess what, dude? You can't keep pointing to your finger like a little kid. Yeah, we got it, Rigo. We got it, man. We're going to go check it out. We're going to take that off. Why are you trying to pull that wrap off? Just calm down. Yeah, but my finger, it was like a little kid. And I hate to do that. One good shot from Rigo, I'm on the ground. I'm not talking shit over here. I'm not talking tough. I'm just being honest. That's what it looked like to me. It's like, dude, we get it. And I know he doesn't speak this language, so maybe that was part of it, but he's talking to people that speak his language. So they kept saying to him, dude, it's all good. We're going to get that wrap off you, but we're not going to do it here. We're going to do it in the back. We're going to check it out. So he did have a contusion, but I think he knew he was just depleted mentally. And back to credit with Lomachenko, how much credit do you give? I don't know, man. Is it his best win? On paper, yeah, it is. It is on paper. Nicholas Walters is another solid win. Gary Russell Jr. is another solid win. The on paper part is like how it's going to be remembered, like 20 years from now, potentially. And I hate to sound like, oh, they're going to remember this fight for 20 years. If they do, it'll be a negative remembrance. But I'm saying as time goes by and when you start to look at resumes, that'll just be on there like, yeah, but Rigo was a two-time gold medalist and yada, yada. Yeah, the size, but, he still beat him, that type of thing. So I really don't know how much credit to put out there per se. It's a tough question. I think you got to give him some credit. Obviously, that's a given. You can't just write this thing off. And now, if this is how you thought it would go, if you said Rigo has no chance, he may win one round and that's it. Okay, okay. Now we're talking, right? Now I can at least talk to you about this, and because some people are just like, oh, he gets no credit. Well, I don't think that's fair. Unless you put money on Loma and you called this to be a nothing of a fight, well, then you were right. You were right. I thought it'd be more competitive, especially through the first 4 to 6 rounds. Not going to sit there and act like I didn't think that. I did think that. I said it. I thought it'd be close, closer than it was. That's for damn sure. Like I said, Rigo, you could maybe give him the first round, but I'm not really sure that he landed the best punch of that round. But like I said, he did come out aggressive for his style anyway. We will speak. I'm going to keep recapping some things from the HBO and whatnot, but we will get into a discussion about what everybody's talking about right now, and that's Lomachenko versus Crawford. Who is the pound-for-pound number one? And this one's tough for me and for a lot of people probably. And it kind of sucks because not that I'm not a huge, if you've heard the show before, I'm not a huge pound-for-pound guy. I'm just not. I got like 16 dudes in my top 10. But it's funny because after Andre Ward made Kovalev, stop fighting. Now, there's low blows in there, I know, but he was hurt. He was showing every sign of wanting to quit. He didn't quit on the stool, though. I give him credit. But I thought that I was finally like, all right, Andre Ward is the number one pound for pound. If you look at what he's done lately, you look at his overall resume, he's got the number one pound for pound. Then he retired. So to me, it's still in flux. That's the way I felt going into this fight. And this is one of the tougher, fighter of the year awards. Man, I'm choking over here. Sorry. Trying to cough with it on mute. Anyway, I got to get some more water in me here. I'm dying over here. I'm fucking dying over here. Somebody help me. I've fallen and I can't get up. No, I shouldn't tease. I'm going to be falling and using the clapper too at some point. Hopefully not for 45 years, but we won't get into that. So we'll have that little conversation. I don't think a lot of people are going to like what I say, but that's okay. That's okay, man. That's no problem. As far as the rest of the card, though, I get they spent some money. I mean, $400,000 isn't a total crazy amount for a main event for one of the fighters, but still, they it was a 2.5 hour card. By the way, the rating did 2.5 hour card carried the 1.7 rating. That's pretty damn impressive. Obviously, having the Heisman Awards show that hour, I think that averaged 2.3 or 2.1. That was a great lead-in. Great lead-in. And also on the back end, you'll have the bump from SportsCenter, the normal time SportsCenter would start. Just like, for instance, when they, BBC's done it on CBS and NBC and whatnot, Fox, you have that local news. And so that local news all across the country, that gives you a bump as well. So just like SportsCenter, it gives you a nice bump. So that way it's great. The problem is I kind of felt like just one of those – I kind of felt like out of 4 fights, you could have gave us some sort of competitive fight on the undercard. And I forgot what – I think it was Sunday Puncher. I can't remember. I think it was the Sunday Puncher podcast. They were talking about, I don't know, maybe it was Loki boxing. But anyway, I agreed with what they said. You can have one of them on there, Stevenson or Conlon, but to have them both on there at this point, I just think it kind of sucks a little bit. For me, kind of sucks a little bit. because it's like you're going to have a lot of walkover fights. Stevenson looked pretty good. The stoppage is like whatever, but he looked pretty good. He's actually, I'd say the last fight or two, he may look better than Conlon, whereas Conlon, the first handful of fights, looked better than Stevenson clearly. So I don't like to get too picky at this time because go look at Andre Ward on the way up. You know what I mean? He didn't look great, to be honest with you. So they got the job done. They got a good look for him. That's smart. But overall, I wasn't too impressed with the card. But I understand, I'm not going to sit here and go nuts over it because if you give me a stay busy in the main event, hook up the co-features, right? That's kind of the rule here at Roboto Radio Podcast. We've been saying it for years. But I can understand if you give us a big fight that takes up a lot of money in the main event. I understand how, but that's what I'm saying. You could have just matched. They have great matchmakers. They could have just matched somebody. Do it even like some of the stuff that they have at the Barclays Center. When DiBella's in charge, he'll have two local fighters from the area fight, and it won't even be on TV. Sometimes it's on Showtime Extreme or whatever, or they'll have it on Facebook. Speaking of Showtime and Facebook, shots out to Showtime and Facebook lately. They've been giving us a lot of fights, and they've always been on that cutting edge of the app or a live stream or whatever. So that's my only complaint, man. You could have had an 8-rounder or something that would have been more interesting. I'd say that, but I get it. I do get it. I do understand how there's some issues there, no doubt about it. Let's go HBO. Right now, Francisco Vargas got the job done against Stephen Smith. Clearly, he was a little more careful. He showed some of his amateur skills. He still, was throwing bombs at times, but I think he mixed in a little bit of movement. I only gave Smith one round. That was the 7th round. That was a close round. Actually, I gave him the 6th. I take that back. I did give him the 6th. So the 6th and the 7th I gave him. But other than that, it was pretty much all Vargas. And by the way, usually Vargas is the one that looks pretty gruesome or looks just spent or out on his feet lately. Smith had just, first of all, he had a little cut on his ear, right? And you thought, okay. And by the way, he was warned for holding and stuff like midway through the fight. But by the 6th round, later in the fight, it's like it was like ripped apart and like partially, it was a really gruesome injury. And they basically were like, finally in that last round, they looked at him like, oh my God, now it's like, before it was a cut, then it was like open, and it was nasty. It was a vicious one. Smith was ready to go, Rigo, but he's got half his freaking ear hanging out, and he's ready to go. That couldn't have felt too good. I think it happened though on the inside, But I was impressed with the way Vargas with the jab and the right hand and just showing a little bit more movement. But when I say impressed, you got to pump the brakes. You got to pump the brakes because this is Smith. Nothing against him. Tough dude, obviously. He showed that. Showed that before this fight, but really showed it here. But it is what it is. He wasn't supposed to win this fight. So I'm not going to sit here and, give him all this credit. I still would be afraid if he got the Burchelt rematch or, you know what I mean? I'd still would be leery of seeing that, to be honest with you. I definitely would not want to, I don't know. It's we fought now in December. When was his last fight? January 20-something, 28th or whatever it was. So it was a good fight for him at this level. That's for damn sure, no doubt about it. But I don't know, man. You know, I don't, I'm still a little wary of him. But you know, the guy's got to make a living. It is what it is, and that's boxing. So you got to do what you got to do. Um, I don't know, man. I'm still a little wary of him. You know, I hope they move him nicely. You know, they don't just throw him in there with somebody next. I guess that would be kind of my that'd be kind of my worry. I'd have to say. I don't. I definitely don't think. I don't know. I still think he's. I think he's past it, man. But who knows? He did have that surgery that a lot of guys have. You know, they take out all the cartilage, and so when you get a cut, it kind of stays under control and doesn't split so wide open. Remember Ricky Hatton? Seemed like the top of his eyebrows were just funky looking, right? It was just like, oh yeah, there's not much there, but it usually would do the trick. You know, you'd still get cut, but it wouldn't bleed as much and it wouldn't open as much. So that's key. But I think it's the cuts and all that, but I think it's him too. You're in there with Smith, got a limited guy. You know what I mean? So we'll see. In the main event, Salido, Miguel Roman and Orlando Salido, you look at their records, pretty close to, the same type of record, not necessarily exactly the same, right? But very similar as far as style, and obviously Salido's got a lot better victories, but this is big for Roman. First couple of rounds, I thought Salido was winning them. The first round was close, though. I mean, Roman had him back to the ropes. He was getting to the body with hooks. Salido did land some hard right hands, and he had a little rally. So I could see if you gave that first round to Roman or a 10-10, or could have been Salido because of that late right hand. I don't know. We knew this was going to be an action fight. It definitely lived up to that. Very good fight. Very good action. Salido, though, there was back and forth in the second, third round, but I thought he was landing the harder shots, especially to the body. Salido had a good first, at least half, I'd say, of that fourth round. But then a combination, a left and a right hand, knocked Salido down. Roman kind of went at him after that. Salido, of course, like Salido does, right? He managed a way to rally back some in that round. But then it kind of turned to Roman, I'd say. The fifth round as well, landing the harder shots. Now, the sixth round, there was some good pressure early in the round by Salido. The fight was obviously, what do you know, getting rough and tumble. But I think the combination punches, were the trick there. And they just kind of take turns slugging away, hooks and uppercuts and crosses. The eighth round was a two-way round. At the midpoint, though, probably 3 or 4 punch combinations once again knocks down Salido. That round, especially, Roman was just digging to the body, man, just digging. And you could really see Salido was starting to falter. He was breaking him down in the ninth, more body shots. A right hook or overhand right, knocked down, knocked out. I never did get the punch stats on this beyond this. Out of the 374 combined landed punches, 350 of them were power punches. So it wasn't a jab fest, nor did we think that was. Big win, though, for Roman. I got to give him a lot of credit, man. That's a big win for him. Big, big win. And he filled in nicely. It wasn't like late notice, but he filled in nicely for Burchelt, who got hurt a while back. Really big win, man. And it's funny because after Salido was like, well, I'm done, I'm good. And a couple years back, he just getting knocked down so many times in certain fights where you're like, dude, this is supposed to be a stay busy fight to build back to a Martinez rematch or a, at the time, you know, a couple years back, or obviously Lomachenko rematch or whatever. And it's just like, you know, I kind of felt like, wow, dude, this dude's hitting the deck so much now. I think he's totally different now. but he find a way to summon. I still think he beat 7-5, beat Francisco Vargas a couple years ago, but he said he's done, and then now today I hear he's back. So he had a cup of coffee, thought about it, said, "No, I'm good. I'm coming back." And CT, I see you online. I see some other people online. Go ahead and call 646-381-4990. There's a little over an hour left of the live stream. Started about 40 minutes late. Had some things come up life-wise that I had to just take care of really quick. Nothing serious, but just things, And Aaron and I all of a sudden had to run to take care of something. But anyway, 646-381-4990 is the number to call. CT, I'm going to get to you in just a moment here. Just going to get through a couple more fights. Maybe you're grocery shopping, right? Maybe you got to go to the club. You got to run errands yourself. Take us with you. 646-381-4990. We're still going live on the live stream for YouTube. And like I said, there is a link. We're going to shut that down in a little bit. So there is a link to the live show. You can call the number. And maybe if you're listening to this the next couple of days here, you'll know that the whole episode's already archived, and you can use that link right there. Now, Tevin Farmer versus, what was it, Ogawa? Ogawa, tough dude, obviously, right? He was more trying to land power punches in one punch at a time in this fight. I really felt that Farmer won the fight. I really do. Was it an outright robbery? Well, I think an 8-4 scorecard is a robbery scorecard, I'll tell you that. Let's just break down some of these rounds, and we'll go from there. Now, I thought Farmer got a pretty good lead. I gave him the first, the second, the fourth, and the fifth. I gave Ogawa, I gave him the third round. I just thought that he was landing pot shots from time to time. A couple of nice overhand lefts. Nice flush shots, too, that you could see. It just seemed like he was busier in spots. Neither guy was, overly busy. But I thought that some people say, well, he didn't throw enough punches. I heard this all over the place. He didn't throw enough punches, and when you don't throw enough punches, it leaves yourself open to lose close rounds. And there were some close rounds in this fight, no doubt about it. But the punch stats really don't tell you he didn't throw enough or land enough. And I don't go off punch stats in general, but in defensively as well, I thought he was just better. But then I'd say that where was it? Somewhere in the 7th or 8th, I felt like that's when Ogawa started really finding his rhythm and doing what he could do. And whether it's late shots in the round or just cleaner shots, I did think he took some rounds there. The 7th you could look at. The 8th. The 11th you can look at. I think he was I think you did see some fading a little bit, though. I'll say that from Farmer in the last handful of rounds, no doubt about it. Some competitive rounds, of course. Sometimes Farmer will come out and land some early lefts, but wouldn't do enough. I thought he boxed him in the 12th round. Scorecards read 116-112, one for Farmer, one for Ogawa. And then the decider was 115-113. That's 7-5. I don't have that much problem with the 7-5 per se, but I had it about 8-4, 7-5, something like that, 8-4. If you look at the punch stats, once again, I heard a lot of people saying the way Farmer fought, he fought in a card that had a lot of Mexican style, right? Like Golovkin, Mexican style. He didn't fight. Well, hold on now. He outthrew his opponent. Farmer threw 525, and through 12 rounds, that's not crazy active, but his opponent threw 445. So he outthrew him by 80 punches. And he landed 158 to 99. When you land 158 punches in a fight and you defend yourself, that's pretty good, though. That's not to say there weren't swing rounds and tight rounds and going back to, well, it's what you like to see, which I'm always kind of like, well, I don't know if it's what I like to see. I like to see who's landing the cleaner punches, who's winning rounds. It's not about the style I like per se. But there was some very competitive rounds, and I can't sit there and say he just whitewashed him or anything like that. It did feel like, though, the first 5 rounds, that was how that was going to play out. But it is what it is. I felt like he won the fight, though. I wouldn't back down from that. And I think some of the criticism he got, I just didn't see that part. To be honest, I didn't see. It was like, really? Huh. Okay, you say he didn't throw enough. Well, what did the guy fighting him do that had him winning the fight then? If you're saying he didn't throw enough, well, he landed over 50 more and threw 80 more. So, like I said, I'm not saying he's putting up Leo Santa Cruz Margarito numbers, CompuBox. He's not throwing 100 punches around, but let's be honest, not a lot of fighters throw 100 punches around for the whole fight. But yeah, I was a little taken back off why people thought that Farmer lost. Not that they had it 7-5 or a draw or a tight 7-5 either way. Not that, because I can see that. I do see several rounds. Anytime you got close rounds, it is going to be up in the air sometimes. But I guess the reasoning that I heard like the last couple of days, whether it's from the media or on Twitter or several podcasts, I just thought, well, I don't know, dude. Like, you say he didn't do enough. What was his opponent doing, though? I mean, his opponent, I'll say this, was coming forward and trying to land a bomb. So maybe people thought, well, he was trying to win the fight. It's like, okay, but don't you have to land the bomb? Don't you have to land these punches? I saw a good defender. I saw a guy that's still a work in progress. I think he will learn from this. I don't want to hear anything about Pernell Whitaker when it comes to this. I liked how they addressed the Pernell Whitaker stuff there, though, for once on HBO, because they did kind of preference a couple of things when they said it rather than just, well, he's got like a Hagler jab. You know how they do it on there. It reminds me of Morgan Hagler. It's like every time they got to go digging back sometimes where you're like, dude, don't go there right now. I get why they do that. Don't get me wrong. And then, I mean, Truax, how many rounds did DeGale win? DeGale won the third, I thought, because Truax wasn't busy enough. Otherwise, he was walking him down, landing overhand rights, getting to the body. And like I said, I'm looking at my scorecard, out hustling him. Uppercuts started hurting him. He hurt him in the 5th round, right? Straight right hands or uppercuts. Just busier. I'm looking. The 8th round, that was a close round. You could have maybe gave that to Gale. Actually, I did give him the 10th round too. The chopping kind of quick combinations, I thought, and DeGale was actually pressuring more, especially like in the last half of the round. The 11th was probably the best two-way round of the fight. And now that I'm in the back end of the scorecard, I did give DeGale the 12th too. So. It's on like on the back of the page. So the first 6 rounds I looked at, or 7 rounds, and I only could find 1 for DeGale, but I did give him 3 out of the last 5. And I thought that he won the last round by default because, Truax was just coasting. Scorecard read 114-114, 116-112, and 115-112. I've heard 30-1. I've heard 40-1. I've heard 100-1. The UK, like I mentioned earlier in the show, the UK, sometimes their betting odds are just like, seriously? And you can bet for that? Like, they'll allow you to bet on 100-1 with the guy that actually has somewhat of a chance. Not really though, on paper. I remember Wood talked to me about this fight, and I really felt like the Durrell performance, and he even said it mentally, he wasn't there. It just wasn't him. Whereas you could see on the Danny Jacobs fight, even though he lost, he ended up getting stopped in the last round. He hurt Danny. He at least fought with them and made it a good fight, a good account for himself. But we thought we had the upset of the year last week. We were wrong. We were wrong. Real quick, Luis Ortiz takes care of this dude who came fresh off of his couch, knocks him out, perfect left hand, I'll say. But then the WWE took over, and I believe they are now making that fight. Wilder versus Ortiz. Bring it on. Jean Pascal took on Ali Bob. What is it, Ali? This dude, he looked good right away. He actually, I thought, kind of hurt Pascal. That's kind of what I was kind of in between on this fight, where I'm like, God, I think he can do well in this fight, but man, this guy's younger, and Pascal, it's easy to hurt him now. But to his credit, it was a really good fight. The second round was a great round. Hooks, crosses. Pascal kind of stole some rounds, and even though his opponent would sometimes have good starts to rounds, the countering, the leaping shots, as we know. He stole the third round, I thought, too. He was throwing like he does for the fences at times. Those counter shots where he's not that active, and then all of a sudden he'll just go. And you could see by the fourth and fifth round that Ali was starting to feel it, man. He was starting to feel it and wear down. Just tying up, kind of throw those combinations. They tie up, and he just kind of repeat and do it again. Overhand right. What was it, the last minute or something like that? TKO. So Pascal, good for you, dude. Good for you. Fulton got the Fulton Lopez fight was a good fight. Fulton was 11-0. Lopez was 8-0. This is from the PBC on FS1 last Friday. I'm just going to fly through it. 76-76, a draw, one of the scorecards. Then 77-75 and 78-74 for Fulton. It's one of those fights where I think you got to rewatch the last four rounds. Lopez was definitely fighting really well. He had a really good start. Lopez did, I thought. I mean, I gave him the first two rounds for sure, but somewhere in the third, fourth, I did see the better shots landed. I don't know. It was one of those fights where you could look at it either way. Bryant Perella and Alex Martin. Perella, 36-second mark, right hook, super hard shot, knocked him down. Then he went to the body. It looked like a short night for Perella. It looked like he was just going to steamroll him. That wasn't the case, dude. Alex Martin got up, and he fought back hard, man. He started landing well in spots. He started showing some defense. I still think that Perella had a better jab. There was a couple of rounds that were tough to score. You started seeing Martin counter very well with that'd be like the best shots of the round in the second half would be the counter shots by Martin. I had it 4-4. There was a knockdown in there, obviously, right away. I had it 4-4 with the knockdown being the difference. I could see it 5-3, 4-3-1. Two scorecards had it 79-72. The other one had it 77-74. Good fight, though. Good fight considering how it started. It looked like it was going to be a long one. Lee Selby got the job done. We're not going to break that down. A lot of recap. A lot of recap. Sorry about that, guys. That was a lot. So we are still going to look ahead as well. I'm going to bring in CT. Then I'm going to bring in Carcino. I see they've been on for quite some time. Anybody that's on right now that wants to not just hang but actually press 1 and join in, please do. If not, that's cool. There is 49 minutes left of the live stream. 646 381-4990 is the number to call. After that, basically 50 minutes, it'll be just an hour live archive. The only way you can hear that live anyway, not fully archived as an episode, of course, is calling 646-381-4990. But you got plenty of time. Like I said, we're at 49 minutes still of the live stream. Had to start it a little later than normal. We're going to look at Billy Joe Saunders versus David Lemieux. We're going to talk about some news. Tyson Fury being freed of his band. He still has to apply for a license. Couple of other fights that were made or sound like they are about to be announced type of thing that we'll get into. Obviously, Kell Brook returns March 3rd. Sheffield, he's taking on Sergey Lomachenko. He's going to be at 154. Jose Ramirez, who's fresh off that big win on ESPN, is taking on Amir Khan at the MSG Theater. That's going to be March 3rd as well. So those are just a couple of fights, for next year. Obviously, you look at Showtime right now, and it just seems like they're just keep trying to build up their schedule so they can release that big, to have the big release. Something they've done since I think spring 2016 is when they started doing this. And to me, it kind of feels that was released like 7 different fights. I think they're going to do a big release like that. I really do. And we're just waiting for it, though. And if you look at the calendar, and I thought it'd be this week or next week. And if you look at it, being that Christmas Eve isn't until the 24th on a Sunday, they still could have that big release next week and basically give boxing fans a nice Christmas gift, Now, the danger of releasing news around holidays is it gets lost in the wash, right? And obviously, they got to start selling some tickets for some of these fights. So I wonder, if like next, even tomorrow, Mikey Garcia's fight could get announced. And then they'll say next Tuesday, we're going to announce our whole first quarter schedule or something. But if you look at some of these fights that they've been talking about, it's just a matter of time until they release this stuff. I mean, the Wilder Ortiz, we all thought it may be Wilder Brazil. Now it kind of seems like they're going to go Wilder Ortiz. Stevenson against Badu Jack. That's another one that we've been hearing about. Santa Cruz and Mares too. I think if they released the big schedule and by the time we got to that fight, people would still be excited about that fight. Obviously, Broner fighting Figueroa or somebody. We've heard a rumored now about Easter Jr., and we've also heard Mikey Garcia as well, a rumor that it's just a matter of, in fact, just today on ES News, or ESN News, Mikey's saying, I'm gonna have it finalized tonight or tomorrow morning. Will they announce some of it or will they wait till next week? I don't know. But there's just a lot that you're just sitting there going, just like Benavidez against Gavril, the rematch. That's a good fight. That's a really good fight. I like that fight. It sounds like that's going to be January 27th. It does sound like Garcia's getting knocked to February now, though. And Benavidez is going to take that date. But I don't know. That's just kind of what, we've been hearing. It's like they just keep mounting it. And you could tell that over the last chunk of time since they've been doing this big release of fights, and I think it's very effective. It's almost like they just try to get as many fights made until it's out of the bag, until people are like, all right, we already know these fights are made, So they'll have a couple on their schedule, which they obviously have a show box with Clarissa Shields and a good undercard, actually. At least one of the fights, 2 unbeaten guys. Or is it 2 1-loss guys? I don't know. But it's showbox, right? So usually they hook up the undercard with something interesting. Then we got Lamont Peterson and Spence, right? That's January 20th. The co-feature sounds like it's going to be Easter Jr. versus Javier Fortuna. And it kind of the rumor, Sergey Lipinets now, which that was rumored to be a Broner fight. It still could be. We've heard Figueroa Garcia. We've also heard recently that Garcia said no to the Figueroa fight because they're already doing something else. I think he'd get killed for the Figueroa fight at this point, to be honest with you. But at this moment, I really do, because people would be like, "Oh, you should have went for the lineal with Linares," which they both sides claim that's next after their first, their early fights, because as we know, Linares already has a fight scheduled. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and bring in CT, and they get to Carcino, see what's going on. What's up, CT? How you doing, buddy? I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing pretty good. Um, had a busy weekend, no doubt. Obviously, most of the attention of the boxing world was on the fight that was one-sided and really didn't pay off for us, unfortunately. Um, I believe you picked Loma by knockout. Am I right? Right. What'd you think of it, man? I mean, let's break down the action. I mean, not a lot of action to break down, but yeah. And then obviously the injury and all that. Just give me your take on this one, man. So was it just style? Was it only size? What do you think that led Rigo to just basically, I'm going to hold and be insubordinate, and ultimately, ultimately, no matter what the contusion was on his hand, ultimately quit? Right. Yeah, that's well said. We didn't think it was going to be Gotti Ward, obviously, not even for 30 seconds, but just a little more something. Does this victory add up to being number one pound for pound? Because now everybody's talking Crawford or Loma. Who is the best pound for pound? What are your thoughts with that? Because I know you see it out there. Yeah, it does seem like he does have the better names on his records. You know what I mean? I think that when you add up Gary Russell, when you add up Rigo, when you add up Nicholas Walters, um, now obviously the Salido fight does still play in there, not as much as it did maybe a year ago or whatever, but yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. I really was all like kind of happy that I believe we had solved it. Uh, with Andre Ward, but then he retired. So it's like, shit, here we go again. Now we got to figure this out again. And I'm not a big pound for pound guy anyway, and either are you. So it's like, yeah, that's great and everything, but I don't know. I could see the one, tied for first, the 1A, 1B, however you want to break it down. Are there any other fights from the weekend that you want to talk about, or any kind of fight news before we start to break down Saunders and Lemieux, or any other things from the weekend? Obviously, my guy Truax from Minnesota sure made Minnesota proud. Yeah, that's all good, man. Yeah, yeah, it's a good call. That's a really good call. I agree with you. I thought he won, but I can see what people are saying to an extent, and hopefully he'll learn. And now that he made it, he got on HBO. Hopefully he'll get back. We'll see, though. You know. No, I hear that. I definitely hear that. All right, buddy. I appreciate you calling in, man. Definitely. You have a good one. Enjoy the fights, man. Yes, sir. And I'm about to. I forgot to shut down the broadcast on YouTube, so I'm going to do that right now. Go ahead and, like I said before, in the description box, there is a link to listen to it live, or, if you're going to listen to it a couple days from now, right, in the future, the whole archived episode